Hello and welcome to Finextra. I'm Emily Haller and I'm here with Andrew Yuille of Thomson Reuters, and we're talking about RegTech versus FinTech. Thank you for joining me, Andrew.
Pleasure, good to see you.
How would you describe RegTech and FinTech, and how do they come together?
FinTech is looking at innovative solutions, typically for consumers, in the little gaps left by financial services organisations, the bigger banks, the bigger insurance businesses. Lots of room for innovation, lots of good ideas there. Actually, a lot of it enabled by initiatives like the FCA's regulatory sandbox, just helping these small early stage businesses understand the regulations that matter to them. So that's really important for the FinTech space. RegTech is looking really at a completely different area. Some of the technologies are similar, but the solution is different. Here we're looking at how institutions, banks, insurance companies, regulated entities can comply with regulation and do that in a better and more efficient way. It's complicated, and there's some really good tools starting to appear to help there.
Can regulatory compliance be a competitive advantage then?
I think there are certainly circumstances where it can be, and a good example of that is the onboarding of corporate customers. And that is a very time-consuming process. Typically we hear 3 to 6 months to gather together the documents. And if you think of a big, complicated corporation with many subsidiaries and different directorships, there's a lot of information there. And it's an area where actually every institution is probably working with every corporation, or near enough. So it makes sense to actually build a record once and then share it across between the different organisations that need it. You know, it's something that our own KYC solutions have been making great strides in just simplifying in that area. But I think there's others where there's less impact. You know, for the average consumer, I don't think they're directly aware of compliance, except possibly when they're having to produce passports and utility bills. More generally, no, that's an area where there's about 80 billion of cost being spent across the industry, and we think that'll go up to probably 120 billion over the next 5 years. That's a lot of resources that are not being spent in other areas, things like new products, capital adequacy calculations, released just to shareholders as straight profit. So I think there, you know, you get that right, and actually you can become a much more competitive institution.
So what impact could RegTech have on regulatory challenges?
Really good example here is if we think of the amount of regulation and how that's grown. Go back to 2008, every day we were tracking about 10 changes in regulation. If we look at last year, we were tracking about 200 changes a day in regulation. Now, if you're an institution on the receiving end of that, that's 200 things a day that you've got to figure out whether they matter to you, what change do you need to make to policies and procedures, and there's a lot of cost around that. Yet it's an area that can and should be automated. So that's certainly one example. We're seeing examples of monitoring of employee behaviour, whether people are doing the right things, making the right decisions. There's many, many innovative areas, but it's all coming back to how can we simplify regulatory change, how can we simplify demonstrating compliance to regulators.
Andrew, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching.